Dr. Marcus Hale stirred as a soft hum pulsed through the deck beneath him. The last thing he remembered was the violent lurch of the experimental hyperdrive. A miscalibrated flux coil had sent his vessel hurling through space like a wayward bullet. Now he lay on a narrow biogel cot, heart still racing, in a compartment that glowed with a gentle cerulean light. All around, sleek consoles and curved alcoves hinted at technology far beyond anything on Earth. Pushing himself upright, Marcus's hand brushed against smooth, cool metal. His eyes snapped open to a vast observation window spanning the wall. Outside, a swirl of cobalt nebulae and distant starfields drifted by, so close he felt he could reach out and touch them. He staggered forward, pressing his forehead to the transparent surface, breath fogging the glass. No earthly landmarks, no comforting blue sphere, only the silent majesty of uncharted space. A soft chime brought his attention to the far side of the chamber. 40 figures stood in careful formation, each one tall and lithe, their skin shimmering like polished pearl under the ambient glow. Their eyes, almond-shaped and iridescent, regarded him with an intensity that made his pulse thunder. They wore flowing garments of fine, diaphanous fabric that caught the light with every subtle movement, creating halos of refracted color. One among them stepped forward. She was slender, with charcoal black hair braided down her back and eyes the color of storm clouds. Though her features were alien, high cheekbones, elongated ears, there was a grace and warmth in her bearing that calmed Marcus's racing thoughts. A small device at her waist clicked softly. A halo of translated words bloomed in midair between them. "I am Ceres of House Aurav." Her voice intoned, each word resonating like chimes. "You have arrived aboard the Celestia, flagship of the Auravellian Outreach. You are our guest and our sole human." Marcus swallowed. I'm Dr. Marcus Hale, aerospace engineer, Earth Space Agency." His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. How did I get here?" Ceres inclined her head. "Your vessel entered our territorial corridor without identification. The hyperdrive's signature matched that of the forbidden expedition we lost a century ago. Security protocols demanded interception. We apologize for any distress." He glanced down at his hands, calloused, human, utterly ordinary compared to theirs. "Forbidden expedition?" he echoed. On Earth's databanks, the disappearance of the Pioneer 1 decades earlier had been a footnote. Yet here, it shaped Auravellian policy. A ripple of conversation passed through the assembled women. Marcus noticed subtle shifts. One tucked a stray lock of glowing auburn hair behind her ear. Another crossed and uncrossed her arms, the tips of her fingers drawing faint luminescent trails in the air. They were communicating telepathically, he realized, threads of emotion and intention flickering beneath serene faces. Ceres held up a palm and the chatter stilled. "I understand you may wish to return home at once. Protocol permits a transit window in 10 cycles, Earth time." Her translated words hung in the air like a promise, and a verdict. A mix of relief and dread clashed within Marcus. 10 cycles, 10 years by Auravellian reckoning. He forced a smile. 10 years is quite a while. Another woman stepped forward. She introduced herself as Lyra, custodian of the Arc's ecodomes. Her voice was soft, lyrical. She beckoned Marcus to follow her. "Your quarters are modest," she said, "but comfortable. We have prepared clothes in your size, and food replicators attuned to human palate. Come, rest and eat. We will need your faculties soon." He allowed himself to be guided down a softly lit corridor. As they walked, Lyra pointed out panels that pulsed with living circuits, walls that shimmered with patterns like DNA helixes, and ceilings that emulated shifting skyscapes. Every surface hinted at a civilization that fused art and science in seamless harmony. In the private suite allotted to him, Marcus donned a smooth, form-fitting tunic that adjusted itself to his body temperature. He sank into a plush chair beside a viewport and activated the food replicator. Moments later, a tray slid out bearing steaming rolls of spongy bread and a cup of dark, fragrant liquid. Replicated coffee, he realized with a pang of homesickness. As he sipped, he let his mind race back over the last hours. The emergency warp, jump, the crackling alarms of his own ship, the blinding flash of lights. The moment the hyperdrive coil overloaded, then oblivion. Now here he was, the lone human among 40 curious alien observers, aboard a starship bound for parts unknown. His communicator buzzed. The display read, "Incoming transmission." With a tremor, he opened it. The image that glowed before him was impossibly familiar, his own face etched with awe and apprehension, recorded moments earlier on his personal log. "Log entry stardate 1042A, he whispered, pressing record. "I have awoken aboard a vessel not of Earth, surrounded by beings of astonishing grace and intelligence. I am alone, yet not alone. They call themselves Aurevelians. They tell me it will be 10 years before I may leave. I don't know what awaits, but if these women are the custodians of my fate, then my survival and perhaps my future depends on understanding them." He paused, ran a hand through his hair, and set the recorder aside. Outside, beyond the window, a distant spiral, galaxy rotated in silent majesty. With a slow breath, Marcus stood. The voyage he never asked for had begun, and beyond the next bend in the corridor, 40 pairs of eyes awaited. Determined to seize every opportunity, he squared his shoulders and stepped into the soft glow of the Celestia's corridors, an Earthling in a strange new world. Marcus woke to the gentle chime of a melodic tone, as though the ship itself was greeting him. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes and slid out of the soft cot in his private suite. With a deep inhale, he followed the corridor's ribbon of light to the grand central atrium. Here the Celestia's heart pulsed with life. Bioluminescent vines curled up silver-trunked pillars, and blossoms like lanterns floated in midair, drifting on invisible currents. Standing at the nexus were Ceres and Lyra waiting for him. "Today," Ceres said, her voice threaded with warmth, "you will see the soul of Auravel." They stepped through a shimmering force field and emerged into the ecodomes, vast geodesic chambers that housed entire ecosystems. Marcus's breath caught. Fields of grass glowed faint green beneath twin suns. Crystalline streams gurgled around moss-covered stones, and strange, orchid-like flowers unfurled petals that pulsed with phosphorescence. Lyra knelt beside one such bloom, her fingers ghosting over its petals. "This is the Lunalis," she explained. "It absorbs starlight and hums in resonance with your emotions. Would you care to try?" With some hesitation, Marcus extended his palm. The flower responded, shifting from violet to a gentle gold, and a faint, vibrating hum echoed in his mind. Images of his home, rain-slicked streets, the crest of a mountain, flashed before him. He gasped. Lyra placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "It senses you," she said softly, "and it sings your soul back to you." Over the next hours, Marcus was led from one marvel to another. Jenna, the xenobiologist, guided him through pools teeming with semi-sentient jellyfish whose bioluminescence traced constellations across the water's surface. Aurea, the historian, showed holographic archives of Auravel's 1,000 worlds, each recorded in living light. By midday, he felt both overwhelmed and exhilarated, every new discovery a prism refracting the vastness of this culture. They broke for a communal meal in the harmonic hall, where an array of crystalline tables floated in midair. The 40 women gathered around Marcus with easy familiarity, offering him dishes that sparkled like nebulae, nutrient-rich globs of golden paste, translucent fruits that fizzed on the tongue, and effervescent nectar that sang with citrus tang. As he learned their names, Ceres, Lyra, Nalia, Carrie, Jenna, Aurea, and 34 more, he realized how effortlessly they wove conversation with laughter, mind-speak, and playful banter. After the meal, Nalia guided him into the arena of thought, a circular chamber ringed with floating holoboards. "This is our strategy hall," she explained, seating herself across from him. "We train our minds as warriors train their bodies." She placed a hollow piece depicting a crystalline fortress, then summoned a rival formation, Your move. Marcus leaned in, surprised to find the rules uncannily like chess, yet richer in dimension. As he considered his options, Nalia's telepathic thread brushed against his mind, a sparkle of amusement, a tease of challenge. He countered her move and felt her silent cheer. For an hour, they dueled in silence and speech, pieces dancing in 3 dimensions while the rest of the spectators, some sipping nectar, others in quiet discussion, watched. When he emerged, breathless and triumphant, he was met by Carrie, whose laughter rang like chimes. "Mind games suit you," she teased, looping an arm through his. "Come, I want to show you the atelier." In the atelier, rooms were lined with translucent canvases that responded to touch. Jenna dipped her fingers into pools of living pigment. Wherever she pressed, galaxies bloomed across the walls. She offered Marcus a brush. His first tentative strokes yielded a spiral of indigo and silver, a constellation born from his imagination. The Aurevelians gathered, voices and mind songs swirling in delight, as Marcus painted the shape that reminded him most of home, a lone star surrounded by dark space. As dusk cycles fell, the ship dimmed its artificial stars and invited all to participate in a soul weave, a sacred ceremony of shared emotion. Marcus hesitated at the threshold of the chamber, aware that joining meant exposing his innermost thoughts. But Ceres took his hand and led him inside. Seated in a perfect circle, they closed their eyes and opened their minds. At first there was only a gentle pull, the warmth of acceptance, the quiet joy of belonging. Then emotions layered upon one another. Lyra's wonder, Nalia's fierce pride, Carrie's playful longing. Marcus felt it all as if breathing. Tears sprang to his eyes. In that moment he was no longer an outsider. He was part of something greater, bound to these starborn sisters by threads of light and empathy. When the weave concluded, the chamber glowed softly. Marcus looked around, his heart pounding with gratitude and astonishment. For the first time since arriving, he allowed himself to believe he might not just survive here, he might truly live. And as he slipped back to his quarters that night, images of alien blooms and whispered laughter echoed in his mind. Though, Earth still called to him across the void. For the first time he wondered if his place might be among these 40 brilliant souls, drifting together through the endless tapestry of the stars. 5 cycles had passed since Marcus's unplanned arrival on the Celestia, a span of time measured not in Earth years, but in the slow, rhythmic rotations of Aurivel's dual suns. In that halfway milestone, he had become more than a guest. He was a trusted engineer, a confidant, even a friend. When power surges began flickering through the ship's secondary conduits, it was Marcus who first noticed the subtle stutter in the lighting panels of the eco-domes. Rushing to the engineering mortise, he found Lyra crouched beside a humming crystal core, her luminescent braid brushing against the floor. "Stress fractures," he diagnosed, running diagnostic tools across the living circuitry. "These nodes are overloaded. If we don't reroute the flow, the arboreal habitats could collapse." Within hours, a makeshift crew assembled, Nalia charting the risk vectors, Carrie providing telepathic links to coordinate their efforts, and Jenna adapting xenobiotic adhesives to seal the microscopic cracks. Under Marcus's direction, they worked side by side in the pulsing glow of emergency lights, calling out readings and adjustments in a mix of speech and mind song. When at last the grid stabilized, the dome exhaled a gentle chorus of flora and fauna, as if relieved to continue their symbiotic dance. Pride and relief radiated through the group, yet Marcus recognized that with respect came something more profound: belonging. That same evening, the Celestia's communal decks buzzed with celebration. Flowers unfurled, bioluminescent ribbons draped the pillars, and an orchestra of harp-like instruments rose in lilting harmony. 40 Aurevelian women wove between tables laden with shimmering delicacies, each one eager to congratulate him. Ceres pressed a garland of stardust orchids into his hands. "For your courage," she whispered, eyes glowing with sincerity. "Tonight, you stand as one of us." Amid toasts and laughter, Marcus realized how far he had come. The engineer, who once panicked at alien telepathy, now danced with grace under the spinning lights. He spun Jenna into a dip, her laughter echoing like chimes. He shared a knowing glance with Aurea, whose gentle smile spoke of unspoken histories. He brushed fingertips with Carrie, their touch a spark of warmth that lingered in his veins. Yet, even as joy coursed through the crowd, Marcus felt undercurrents of something more fragile. In private moments, telepathic threads whispered through the network of souls, longing, curiosity, fear. Lyra's gentle wonder had deepened into affection. Nalia's strategic mentee respect had blossomed into something warmer. And Carrie? Her playful banter sometimes gave way to silent shadows in Marcus's mind. He returned these sentiments, equally entangled, but the clarity of telepathy left no room for ignorance. One dawn cycle later, while Marcus inspected the warp drive manifold, Nalia appeared at his side. Her eyes were unusually serious. "We sense turmoil among the sisters," she said softly, laying a hand on his arm. "Your emotions ripple farther than you realize. Some feel left behind." He nodded, guilt knotting his chest. The openness that bonded them also exposed vulnerabilities. He knew he could not promise exclusivity. His heart was shared among them all, but he could not ignore the hint of jealousy that tarnished their harmony. Before he could formulate a plan, an alarm screeched through the corridors. A solar flare, more intense than any in recorded history, had unleashed a torrent of charged particles upon the Celestia. Shields glowed red as energy rippled across their hull. Marcus raced to the command deck, Saris and Lyra racing beside him. Panels overloaded, screens flickered to static, and the ship shuddered with kinetic recoil. "This could fry our comm array," Saris warned, eyes wide with urgency. Without external link, they would be cut off from all contact for years. Marcus barked orders. "Nalia, seal the aft conduits. Jenna, ready the plasma dampeners. Lyra, synchronize the shield coils with me." Voices and mind threads intertwined, in swift consensus as they fought the flare's onslaught. In the crucible of crisis, Marcus's leadership shone clear. He remembered Earth's old emergency drills, adapted them on the fly, and relied on his companions' unique gifts. When the final surge passed, the Celestia emerged battered but intact. Silence followed, a hush of disbelief and relief, before the crew erupted in cheers. Later, in the quiet of his quarters, Marcus pressed a hand to his chest. He had saved the ship and his 40 friends, but at what cost? Their gratitude was genuine, but their eyes held more than respect. They saw devotion there too, and he felt the weight of their silent hopes. He sank into his chair, the soft hum of the skylight above echoing the pulse of Auravel's suns. 5 years of wonders and perils, of laughter and tears, had forged a bond deeper than he ever imagined possible. But love, he realized, was a star that burned with both brilliance and unpredictability. And as he gazed out at the vast starlit void, he understood that the greater journey lay ahead, learning how to cherish 40 hearts without fracturing the galaxy of feelings they shared. As the 10th cycle drew near, a restless energy rippled through the Celestia's halls. Marcus found himself awake long before the artificial dawn, pacing the alloy-plated corridors with wrench and datapad in hand. He'd spent months refining a warp beacon, a compact transmitter tuned to Earth's quantum signature. If all went well, any human vessel in the sector would detect its pulse and home in on their coordinates. It was his path home. And yet, each wire he soldered felt like a thread unraveling the tapestry of bonds he'd woven here. Late one evening, Saris found him hunched over a workbench in engineering, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, and Marcus closed his eyes at the warmth of her touch. "You've done more than build machines for us," she whispered, voice heavy with unspoken meaning. "You've become part of our hearts." He swallowed, fingers trembling. "I must finish this," he replied. "Earth needs to know I'm alive." She nodded, but in her gaze he saw hesitation, fear that his beacon might also broadcast his farewell. Over the next cycles, the Orcs specialists volunteered to help. Lyra synthesized a crystal lens to amplify the beacon's signal. Nalia, devised a shielded casing to protect it from cosmic radiation. Carrie calibrated the frequency sweeps to cut through stellar interference. As they worked side by side, Marcus felt the gravity of every shared smile, every brush of their hands. He tried to steel himself against regret, but at night their telepathic currents tugged at his resolve. Pleas of hope, whispers of loss. On the eve of activation, the 40 gathered in the observation ring, a circular gallery overlooking a nebula, so vast its colors defied earthly names. Sarah stood before the beacon, her hand on its crystalline core. "When you send your call," she said, voice barely more than a thought, "will you return to us, or leave us for good?" The question hung between them like a suspended star. Marcus's chest tightened. He reached out, cupping her cheek. "I promise I'll come back," he said, though his heart quailed at the truth he could not yet speak. With a collective breath, they activated the beacon. A pulse of emerald light radiated outward, rippling through the nebula's embrace. The hum of the ship grew steady and resolute, as if the Celestia itself cheered their gamble. For one shining moment, hope and dread entwined. Home was almost within reach, and yet distance yawned between them. When the final signal faded, Saris lowered her hand. Tears glimmered on her lashes. Around them the others formed a silent circle, their emotions coursing through the weave. Pride for his ingenuity, fear of abandonment, a deep ache of longing. In that chorus of feeling, Marcus understood that leaving meant fracturing the family he'd found. But staying without hope of rescue would condemn him to a life half-lived, forever yearning for Earth's blue sky. He stepped into the center of the circle, drawing them close. "Auravel has given me purpose beyond my wildest dreams," he began, voice firm despite the tremor in his chest. "But my heart still carries the echoes of home." He looked into Saris's storm cloud eyes. "I will board the human vessel when it arrives. But I ask you to come with me, as ambassadors, as friends, as something more." Silence settled like stardust, and Marcus held his breath. Then, a single nod. Saris's lips curved into a tentative smile, and the others joined in, their joy and relief washing over him. In that moment, home was no longer a place of departure, but a bridge uniting two worlds. And as they prepared for Earth's orbit, Marcus felt the weight of his choice shift from longing to promise. Together, they would carry their shared story to the stars beyond. The distant glimmer on the horizon of space was unlike any star Marcus had ever seen, an angular silhouette growing larger with each passing moment. Through the Celestia's forward viewport, he and Saris watched the arrival of USS Voyager 2, its hull bristling with antennae and Earth's familiar insignia. Marcus's heart thundered. The moment he'd dreamed of and feared had come at last. In the weeks since the beacon's activation, the 40 Aurevelians had prepared for this day. They donned ceremonial stoles woven from lunar silk, each strand infused with starlight from their home world, symbolizing their roles as envoys. Lyra pressed a single lunaless bloom into Marcus's hand, its petals glowing softly, a silent wish for safe passage. Nalia offered him a small holocrystal of the Celestia, a keepsake of the ship and the bonds forged within it. With each gift, Marcus felt the weight of departure grow heavier. When docking clamps engaged, the airlock hissed open. A triad of human officers, clad in the crisp blue of Earth's space agency, stepped forward, faces etched with awe at the sight of the Aurevelian delegation. Marcus led them into the shuttle's cargo bay where human and alien observers exchanged cautious bows, cameras whirred recording this unprecedented first contact. "Dr. Hale," Commander Reynolds greeted him, voice tinged with disbelief. "On behalf of Earth, welcome home. And, may I ask, who are your companions?" Marcus gestured to the 40 women, standing with serene dignity. "These are the House of Aurav," he said, voice ringing with pride. "They have journeyed 10 years to bridge our worlds. I present them as Earth's first ambassadors to Auravel." A hush fell. Then applause rippled through the human crew. Reporters crowded the bay, clamoring for statements. Sensors and translators whirred to life. Marcus watched Sarah step forward, her storm cloud eyes bright with resolve. In measured English, every word painstakingly chosen, she addressed the humans. "We come in peace," she began, voice echoing through the metal chamber. "We offer friendship, knowledge, and the promise of shared futures." As the shuttle detached and descended toward Earth's atmosphere, Marcus gathered the delegation in the observation lounge. Through reinforced glass, they witnessed the blue-green orb growing beneath them, cloud patterns swirling like painted silk. "I promised I'd return," he said softly, taking Saris's hand. "But never alone." Around them, the other women closed the circle, their telepathic threads weaving a tapestry of hope and anticipation. Touching down on the launching pad of Earth's orbital station, the shuttle doors opened to a flood of light and voices. Soldiers in ceremonial dress formed a guard of honor. Dignitaries stood ready with treaties and handshakes. Marcus led his new family onto the platform. Cameras blazed. Satellites relayed the scene to continents below. He felt a surge of emotion. Pride, relief, awe, swirling in his chest like the depths of space itself. That night, on the station's rooftop garden under a dome of Earth's night sky, Marcus and the Auravellians gathered with Commander Reynolds and visiting officials. Lanterns drifted on a gentle breeze. Saris raised her glass of replicated nectar and spoke, "To unity between worlds, may our shared journey be ever guided by curiosity, compassion, and courage." As everyone echoed the toast, Marcus looked around at the faces, human and alien, alike, and knew that his decade among the stars had not been an exile, but the beginning of a new chapter for all of humanity. And so, as Earth's moon rose over the horizon, the 40 luminous ambassadors of Auravel and one Earthling engineer stood together on foreign soil, no longer strangers but pioneers of a bond that would span the cosmos.